It's where the point is on the y-axis. So x ends up being 0, and it's where the line crosses that middle line, or the north and south line. Okay, so it's a two-step process to graph these. So instead of 3 points, instead of having 3 points, you're only going to have 2. And it's a very specific 2, and it's the same 2 every time. Okay, so that's kind of, I'm going to teach you that way. So here is, here's the solution for every single one of the problems that are reflected in today's lesson. If you want to find where a line crosses the x-axis, you substitute 0 for y. You substitute 0 for y, and you solve for x. So the point that you're going to get is you're going to find this point right here. You're going to find x. You're going to find it by replacing y with 0. So your first ordered pair, you'll always get a number for x, but y will be 0. And the reverse is true to find the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, you substitute 0 for x, and you solve for y. And that's going to give you a point that looks like this. 0 will be the first coordinate, and you will find the second one. Okay, so this is the chunk of the information that you need to know in order to solve problems for today. Okay, so we only end up with 2 points, and we connect those two to make our line. One of them is going to be on the x-axis, the other one's going to be on the y. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do this with pre-algebra students. Okay, I do kind of a reverse t-chart. Okay, so my t-chart, instead of like the one yesterday, it's going to look like this. Okay, and I'm going to write my original equation, which they're telling me right there is y equals 3/4 x minus 6. So I'm going to write my original equation. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my ordered pair here, and I'm going to make my ordered pair here, because I'm going to get 2 of them. The first time I solve this equation, I'm going to replace y with 0, and I'm going to find x. The second time I solve it, I'm going to replace x with 0, and I'm going to find y. Okay? So I've only got to solve it twice. But with our other lesson, how many times do we have to solve it? 3. Okay? So I only have to solve it twice now. So the first time I solve it, remember, is the first or the second number x or y? First number is x, the second number is y. So this is telling me right now, I'm going to solve this equation by replacing y with 0. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite the equation. Instead of writing y equals 3 times x minus 6, I'm going to write 0 equals 3/4 x minus 6. Now I've got to get x by itself. How do I get x by itself? I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Okay, when I do that, I get 6 equals 3/4 times what? Now what's the opposite of multiplying by 3/4? Dividing by 3/4, right? So now I've got to take 6 divided by 3/4. Now this is going back to the first semester here. When we're dividing by a fraction, we keep the first number, we change the sign, and we flip. Keep, change, flip. We're dividing fractions. And then here we can simplify before we multiply, because both 6 and 3 can be divided by what? 3, right? Because 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now we're just left with 2 times 4. What's 2 times 4? 8. So when I replaced y with 0, x was 8. Now I have an ordered pair. What is my ordered pair? 8, 0. Okay, and I'm going to graph that here in a second. I'm not going to graph it right now. example 2, and then we'll do 4 practice problems, and we'll be done, okay? Alright, so example 2, it says, and this is easier. This is easier. They're telling you what the intercepts are. They're saying graph a line that has an x-intercept of -1 and a y-intercept of -4. So they're telling you what x is when y is 0, and then they're telling you what y is when x is 0. So if they tell me the x-intercept is -1, that represents the point -1, 0. Could I write it as 0, -1? No. Okay, because they told me x. X always has to be the first number. And since we're talking about intercepts, for this line to be on the x-axis, y has to be 0. Now, the reverse is true here. They're telling me the y-intercept is -4. So that represents the point 0, -4. Why can it not be -4, 0? Right, because x always comes first. Okay, so now can I graph this? Yeah. I'm going to plot the point -1, 0, which is here. And then I'm going to plot the point 0, -4, which is here. And then all I have to do is connect my dots, draw a line with arrows at the end, and I'm done. Questions on those? It's just important that you list the numbers in the correct order, because if you don't, if you flip them, you're going to get a completely wrong answer, okay? Now, let's go through these 4 together, and we'll be done. It says find the intercepts and then graph. So this is very typical of what you would see on a test, okay? And this is, we will do this all over again next year, okay? Some of these are exactly like the problems we'll get next year, okay? So here's how I suggest doing them. I suggest doing it the same way each time, especially until you become familiar with it. You draw your upside down T-chart, and you tell yourself, okay, I know I'm going to get 2 ordered pairs. One where y is 0 and I find x. The other one where x is 0 and I find y. So I'm going to solve it twice. I'm going to write my original equation, which for this one is 4x plus y equals -3. And now I'm going to solve it 2 times. The first time I'm going to solve it, which variable am I replacing with 0 first? Y. Okay, so now instead of writing 4x plus y equals -3, I'm going to say 4x plus 0 equals -3. Now, do I even have to worry about that 0 right now? No, because it doesn't change anything. So now I'm just looking at 4 times what equals -3. So I didn't mean to do that line right there. 4 times what equals -3? What's being done to x? It's being multiplied by 4. What's the opposite of multiplying by 4? Dividing by 4. Now, I won't give you one this year where you end up with a fraction for an intercept. But in this example, and you may accidentally run into it in your homework, my y-intercept is actually -3/4, which you can have. We don't do much of it in here, and we don't even do much of it at all in pre-algebra. Okay, and in fact, in pre-algebra, I don't ever try to make it where it ends up that, because 3/4 is about 0.75, so it's not going to be exactly on a line. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and solve it again, but this time, what am I replacing with 0 with? X. So now I'm going to have 4 times 0 plus y equals -3. What is 4 times 0? 0. So that just cancels, and I'm left with y equals -3. So there's my second is if they don't tell you which method to use, if it's not in function form, what we're doing is the easiest way. If it is in function form, the easiest way is actually there's a third way to graph these that I haven't taught you yet. Okay, so, and it's not the T-chart. Okay, there's an easier way to graph than if it's in function form. Okay, but if it's not, this is the best way, in my opinion. You may have a different opinion, but to me, I find it easiest because putting it in function form sometimes can present a challenge. Okay, but with these, you don't necessarily have to. So that's a really good question. Okay, so number 2, is number 2 in function form? No. Did the directions tell me to put it in function form? No. So do I have to? No. Okay, so what I'm going to do is and the directions are telling me, you find the intercepts. So to find the intercepts, I'm doing my upside down T-chart. I know that I'm going to get 2 ordered pairs. One where y is 0 and I find x. The other one where x is 0 and I find y. I'm going to write my original equation. And I'm going to solve it 2 times. The first time, I'm replacing y with 0, and I'm finding x. What is 2 times 0? So I don't even have to worry about this term right here. So now it looks like this. 6 times what equals -2? Divide both sides by 6, and I end up getting a fraction again, which again, I'm not going to put one that ends up as a fraction on a quiz or a test, but that reduces down to -1/3. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, and this time I'm going to replace x with 0, and I'm going to solve for y. So this cancels, and I'm left with -2 times what equals -2. Divide both sides by -2, and I get positive. What's -2 divided by -2? Positive 1. Okay? Remember, a number divided by itself is always 1. Okay, so now I have my 2 intercepts. -1/3, 0, which is right about here, and then 0, 1, which is here. And I would connect my dots, draw my line, and I would be done. Okay? Now 2 more. Number 3, we don't end up with any fractions. Number 4, unfortunately, we end up with 1 more fraction. Okay, but again, I'm going to try to keep those off of the quiz or a test. So number 3, same thing. It's not in function form, and the directions tell me to find the intercepts. So I'm going to draw my upside down T-chart. I'm going to go ahead and say I know that there are 2 ordered pairs. One where y is 0, and I'm finding x. The other one where x is 0, and I'm finding y. I'm going to write my original equation, and now I'm going to solve it twice. The first time I'm going to replace y with 0, so I don't even have to worry about it. I can ignore that whole y term now, because y times anything, whatever, is always 0. So now I'm just left with -3 times what equals -15. Divide both sides by -3, and negative divided by negative is what? Positive. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So I'm good there. So now I have my x-intercept. To find my y-intercept, I'm going to ignore the term with x now, because -3 times 0 is 0. So I have the opposite of y is -15. What's the opposite of -15? Positive 15. So there is my y-intercept. Okay, and why did you get positive? Because there's technically a negative of 1 in front of here, and so I divided both sides by -1, and a negative divided by negative is a positive. So look at the graph for number 3. It's counting by 2's. So be careful there. It's counting by 2's. So my x-intercept is 5, 0, which is 5 over, which is right here in the middle. Okay, and then my y-intercept is 0, 15, which is going to be in between this 14 and 15. So I'm going to graph it, draw my lines, connect my dots, and I'm done. Okay. The last one. Is it in function form? Do I have to put it in function form? No. Okay, so I'm going to do my upside down T-chart. I'm going to go ahead and draw the 2 places for my ordered pairs. One where y is 0 and I find x, the other one where x is 0 and I find y. Okay, I'm going to write my original equation. 12x minus 6y equals 18. The first time I solve it, I'm going to replace y with 0. So now this term just goes away. And I'm left with 12 times what equals 18. I'm going to divide both sides by 12. And I end up getting an improper fraction. It reduces down to, both can be divided by 6. So it reduces down to 3 over 2, which is also 1 1/2. Okay, so either way you write it, I'm going to write it 1 1/2 because that'll make it easier for us to graph. And then I'm going to solve it again, except I'm going to replace x with 0. So now I'm just left with 12 times 0, which is 0. And I'm left with negative 6 times what equals 18. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. And what's positive 18 divided by negative 6? Negative 3. So now my x-intercept is 0, negative 3, which is here. My y-intercept is 1 1/2, 0, which is right about there. And connect my dots. And I am done. So it'll be really important, since this is such a new concept, for you guys to use your notes. Okay, so I think I gave you practice